Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. A quiet revolution is underway, and Black women are at the center of it. More and more of them are making the decision to leave the United States, and not just for travel, but for an entire new life. It's called Blaxit. And destinations like Ghana, Portugal, Mexico, Jamaica, and beyond are becoming new home bases. What is driving this movement? And is it just beginning? We're talking with several women who have made the leap and what they found on the other side. My guests are Dr. Sonia Ford. She left the United States 10 years ago for Kuwait and now lives in Antigua. Marissa Robinson left the U.S. for Ghana and is now a dual citizen. And we have Sherelle Jones Whitfield. She left the U.S. last summer. She now lives in Tulum, Mexico. Ladies, thank you all so much for joining this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Sure thing. And because we are all such good friends right now, I already know that I have at least 3 places that I can come and vacation for free. I will bring you a grape soda and some cookies, and we will.
You got that right.
Yeah, you got to get in where you can fit in. But I really do appreciate you taking your time. I want to share a couple of fast facts with you. Here are some of the reasons why Black women are leaving the U.S. Certainly, concerns about racial profiling, lack of safety in the U.S. Have prompted many to seek environments where they feel more secure and valued. Obviously, the high cost of living in the U.S. makes it difficult for some to retire or live comfortably. Black women have reported feeling unsupported in career or corporate environments, with recent trends showing significant numbers leaving the workforce due to the dismantling of DEI initiatives, increased workplace hostility, etc. For some, it's the current political atmosphere and social unrest, and others are simply looking for a better work-life balance. I want to start with your personal journeys. If you could just kind of give us the cliff notes, because there are 3 of you. And I'll start with you, Sonia, because you've been gone the longest. Why did you leave 10 years ago?
Well, Harold, 10 years ago, it was really for personal reasons. I just felt like I needed a change of scenery and I needed to do something different with my life. I wasn't feeling at peace. And so one of my friends lived in Kuwait and had been there for a decade. She invited me to come and visit her. I went to Kuwait, Oman. We did a little traveling. And she said, "Why don't you move here?" And I was like, "Kuwait, really?" And I was like, "I need a job." And while I was there on vacation, I looked for jobs. I found 3 jobs. And I came back to the States and made the decision within 2 weeks that I was moving. And I did, and I have not regretted it. And once I was in Kuwait, I decided, I like this international life. I stayed there for 6 months, and then I transitioned to Antigua and Barbuda, a beautiful West Indies island with 365 beaches, and I have not looked back. I'm a permanent resident. I'm waiting for my dual citizenship, and it has been a dream come true.
365 beaches, so one for every day.
Exactly.
Of the year. Yeah, okay.
I love it.
Oh, my gracious. Marissa, what about you? Why Ghana?
Oh, I always answer that question with why not? Why not Ghana? I've always wanted to live somewhere tropical, Black, and enterprising. Those were just my journal notes, my personal life. And I went to visit, and upon arriving at the airport, the energy was just different. And it really spoke to me, and something inside just said, "Oh, game on. This is different, and this is over." And ever since, like every step forward was a step and a path to grounding myself there. I started a business there. I had two locations. I then got into real estate. So this is year 6 in Ghana. And I wouldn't turn back for anything. I mean, maybe family and things
Hmm.
like that in America, but it's the best decision that I feel like I've ever made. My community over there is awesome. I have elders, I have aunties, I got mamas, papas, uncles, I have girlfriends. The guys are great. The business opportunities are great. I've gotten to explore so many different parts of myself that I feel like were untapped into here because we have to be on like such a system. And even the billing cycle, you just learn so much about the way this system operates and how it can just keep you laser focused on what it drives for you or what it wants you to produce versus what you actually have inside of you to give to the world.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I could go on and on.
Yeah. Sherelle, you also have an interesting story living now in Tulum, Mexico, but you were here, and all three of you ladies are Maryland ladies, let us say. Um, but Sherelle, you were last on the Daily Drum because you were recovering from long COVID,
Mm.
Exactly.
and that was, to say the least, a very difficult trial. But when I, reconnected with you uh, about a month or so ago, um, and you said you were in Mexico, and I said, "Oh, are you on vacation?" You were like, "No, I live here." So, so explain to our listeners why you moved to Mexico.
Well, as you mentioned, my journey began um, as I was navigating illness, and I simply was not getting better. I was not. Um, and I had an illness, I had a form of heart disease that was triggered by stress. And no matter how much rest I got, it just wasn't enough. Uh, and so I needed a place, a sanctuary. I needed a refuge. I needed somewhere that I could go and not worry about having to be pulled on, called on. I didn't have to worry about expectations. I didn't have to worry about all the things I had to worry about at home. And I found time to be able to come to Mexico. And I started coming, and it was just such a tranquil place, just beautiful. The people were beautiful. It was an easy way of existing while I was here. And
Mhm.
every time I would go back home, soon as I got off the plane, I would begin having pain. I would begin having the symptoms of the disease that I was experiencing. But whenever I was here, I didn't suffer. So I knew it was something different. I knew that there was something different here that I wasn't getting at home. And part of it was less stress. Part of it was my eating habits changed. The food is so different here.
Mhm.
It's healthy. The fruits and the vegetables, they are in abundance. There's no such thing as organic and non organic. Everything is good, everything is delicious. It's not as many chemicals in the products. So I was eating more whenever I would come. I was eating healthier. I was stronger. I had access to, because it's warm weather all year long, I had access to swimming pools so I could get more exercise in, and I felt improvement. And I just know that it was really the Lord leading me here. He used that to lead me here. And I just kept coming back, and I never wanted to leave. Whenever I got off the
Mm.
plane, I couldn't wait to get back here. I was counting down the days till I can get back. And I
Mhm.
finally made the decision where I'm healthier here.
Hmm.
And if
And you know what they say: if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so,
that's
yeah,
right.
you. One of the things that I know a lot of people, when you talk to expats and the like, it's one thing for you to be in the DMV and say, "Hey, I'm going to move to Texas, or I'm going to move to LA, or I'm going to move to Atlanta, or I'm going to move to Philadelphia, for that matter." But you're talking about literally a world away, a country
Mhm.
away. When you, Sonia, when you decided to do this, um, first of all, what did you do with your stuff? I mean, you can't put all of your stuff in a suitcase. You can't put your house in a suitcase.
Yeah, well, I think because I had a good circle of friends who really helped me make quick decisions. Because, like I said, I came back and within 2 weeks I made the decision. And then 2 weeks later, I was gone. I moved to Kuwait. I had a home in Charles County and I decided, well, I'll rent it. And I was able to rent it. I rented it for like a year. And then I decided I didn't want to do that. And I kept the home for like 2 more years. And then I eventually sold it because I decided I wasn't going to leave Antigua. It was going to be my forever home. And as far as my stuff, at first I had stuff in a storage unit. And then I decided that, I really don't need all this stuff. You really learn to live as a minimalist. You learn to live with less and you learn what's important. And living on an island, it's so peaceful and so freeing that you really do realize that you don't need much to be happy and to be at peace. And as far as my stuff, I got rid of a lot of stuff. In fact, I gave most of my furniture. I gave a lot of stuff away. I even got rid of my car and, really decided that this is the place for me and I'm starting fresh. And so, I had an apartment when I was in Kuwait, and then I had an apartment originally when I was in Antigua, and now I have a home there. And you make it work. You realize that these are just things. What's important are the people. And my circle of friends were so supportive of me that, they really encouraged me to do this. And, for them, I was being brave. For me, I don't know if I was being brave, but I felt like it was something necessary so that I could be at peace. And nothing can take the place of your peace of mind. And I'm telling you, where I live now, Antigua and Barbuda is my home, and it is the most peaceful place for me. And I hope I never, ever have to leave. It's just the most peaceful place. But you have to remember these things, it's just stuff, and even my children were very supportive of me. So it's just stuff. And if you have people who are willing to support your journey, you can do it. And that's how I was able to do this and be there for 10 years.
Marissa, what about your stuff and your family? You are in this conversation. You are the youngest person in this conversation. So,
Okay.
I'm familiar with your entrepreneurial spirit and and all of that. So I'm kind of not surprised, but that you would spread your wings and do something like this. And we've spoken about it before, but I'm sure there were some other people. Were there any naysayers in your family, or naysayers of your friends? And again, what about your stuff?
Well, I will say I'll start with my stuff because that's shorter. My stuff, much like Sonia, you pack, you minimize, and then you leave. And once you made those decisions to stay, when I returned back to America, oh man, the stuff that I had in storage was just trash or giving it away to Goodwill. I had stuff from Target that had tags on it. I mean, we buy stuff in advance for this moment in life or this thing to be prepared. You don't think like that. When you live abroad, like it's not the stuff that you need prepared. Do I have gallons of water for survival? Do I have non-perishable foods? Do I have Wi-Fi? Do I have extra cords for extension plugs and different, I think, more natural and practical things and not so much stuff. I don't shop like I used to. In Ghana, I love the fashion and I love the shopping. But when I came back home, I realized how much I was just a consumer. I was so much of a consumer. And now I'm totally different. But I have dual citizenship. I exercise that Quite frequently, I am in America. I still have my home. I still have my stuff. I still have clients. I still do business here, as well as in Ghana. So I have two worlds that are set up for me at any time to be in, to occupy space and business. And I do like it that way.
Mhm.
Naysayers, you were asking me about that. Yeah,
Well,
my
hold
family thought
that
I was
point.
crazy.
Hold that point because I do want to hear that,
Hmm.
and I also want to talk to Sherelle about the same thing. But I do have to take a break. Don't forget, you can hear
Okay.
this in every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are continuing our conversation about Black women who have left the U.S. and are now living abroad. My guests are Dr. Sonia Ford. She lives in Antigua. Marissa Robinson. She lives in Ghana. And Sherelle Jones Whitfield. She lives in Tulum, Mexico. Now, before we continue with this conversation, I did want to say we had a fourth guest on this program. Unfortunately, she is not available. She lives in Jamaica, and as a result of infrastructure problems that they are still having there, her
Mhm.
Wi-Fi is sketchy, which, of course, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. Some of the and I think Marissa kind of spoke about this. I have extra cords, I have extra water, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Which is something that I don't know, unless you live in Eastern or Western North Carolina or someplace like that, or where, Texas has been hit, having those kind of survival foundations are not something that most Americans think about.
Mhm.
And the Wi-Fi, for example, that we come become so accustomed to having on demand without fail, that is something else that some Americans who may be listening to this conversation or considering leaving may be thinking, Marissa, I don't know about that. So you were
Mhm.
talking about pushback that you may have gotten from family and friends. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, they all thought I was crazy. When I left, it was COVID. It was the first year of COVID, and it was like, this is the worst time for you to go. And there's no way. I mean, and there's all kinds of things that happen in life, right? Like, I think my grandmother was really sick. Obviously, we have this huge infectious pandemic. We're still wearing gloves to the grocery store and shields and masks, all kind of stuff. So, it was not an ideal time to go for some reasons, but it was also an ideal time to go for exploration and see something new, for inspiration. We've been locked in the house for like a year at that point. And, even though the world started to open up again in DC, it was very much still closed. My background is in beauty, as you know, Harold. So I'm a hairstylist, and work was very slim to none. People were not coming to salons. We were not busy. So it was a lot of idle time. And I had already planned to go to Ghana anyway, and I didn't want to cancel. I found a really good flight. I said, my visa comes back, if I expedite and it comes back in time, I'm out of here. And it just seemed like everything lined up perfectly so that I could go. But I went against a lot of naysayers to get there. And I'm so glad I did. One thing I will say about living abroad, you do learn to listen to your inner voice. A lot of what we have in America is marketing and messaging. Our systems run on autopilot. And although we see that as a measure of convenience, it is a deterrent from hearing your own voice and reconnecting with self. And when you're in a place where you feel like you can think for yourself, you can do for yourself, you can self-express easily. The weather is complementary to your lifestyle, to your healing, to your peace of mind. People are friendlier, food is fresher, what's going in your body is great. So what the output is that much more beautiful. So it was just a no-brainer for me. I didn't care what nobody said. I did that for me. And I think COVID really put me in position to jump. because all of our backs were against the wall. And it really felt like all you got is you. And you don't know when your time is, young or old. You could have been out of here like that, depending on your circumstances. So
Yeah.
I went for it.
Uh, Sherelle, before you left, as a Black woman, did you have any initial concerns about how you would be, treated by the Mexican population in Tulum, or more broadly? Did you have any safety or security concerns, or and how you would be received?
I didn't have any concerns. I came back and forth for almost an entire year before I made the decision to land here. And as I was coming back and forth, I was establishing community. I was meeting people. I was learning my way around. I was getting a feel of what the culture was like. I was blending in. I was participating. I was learning about this land that I would soon live in. And so I didn't have any concerns because I already had an understanding of where I was going to be. I've always been a good adjuster. I do well at adjusting to change. So the minor things that are different, to me, they're minor. To other people, they may be major. They didn't make a big difference to me. I will also compare, like, okay, so we have issues in the United States with safety. We have child trafficking. We're the top country that has child trafficking. So there are issues there that we lived with, that I grew up with. And so it didn't seem like it would be much of a difference. If I can navigate it there, then I can navigate it here.
Now, it's interesting because, again, you're in Mexico, but Marissa and Sonia, you're in Black countries.
Black countries.
Yes.
So
Beautiful.
right. But and I'll ask you this, Sonia, you're in Antigua now, and how are you treated as a Black woman? But I'm also interested in how you were treated as a Black woman in Kuwait.
As a Black woman in Kuwait, I don't feel like I was treated any differently. There is a whole community of expats. I even had sorority sisters there. We would go to IHOP every Friday and have breakfast. And there is community that was mentioned by the other ladies. And there is such community in these different places. There's an expat community. But beyond the expat community, the people of the country are so welcoming. I mean, I felt so welcome when I was in Kuwait, and especially in Antigua and Barbuda. I feel so welcome. I've really become a part of the community. I volunteer. I'm a member of the Lions Club. I make sure that, I do things in the community, and you make connections wherever you go. You have to make those connections, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But no, as a Black woman in a foreign country, I didn't feel any different. I guess because, I grew up in a small town, not that many Black people in my town, and to be in a country surrounded by Black people who are running things, and you see things a little differently, and you feel, empowered, and you feel beautiful. And so that's what I experience. There's no, I wasn't even scared. I went somewhere far away by myself, and I felt comfortable.
So, but here's the other thing, because obviously all of you all are working, and Sonia, you have had a long career as a clinical therapist, but now you are a flight attendant. Why the switch, and what were you able to use the career that you had established here in the United States when you moved abroad, or did you just decide this just isn't getting it anymore and you needed to do something else?
No, I actually really stuck with my career. When I moved to Kuwait, I became a school counselor at a Kuwaiti high school, when I moved to Antigua, I worked at a medical school and I became the director of the wellness center there. I still did therapy. I still teach online at another university. I still do that. That's still my part-time job. I've been doing that forever. And so I really don't see why I have to give up who I am and what I do just because I'm in another country, because there are so many ways that you can integrate who you are and what you do. And even leaving my job, I say I retired from my job in Antigua as the director of the wellness center to be a flight attendant. I am just living out a 7th grade dream. You know, I take those leaps. I'm not afraid anymore. I took the leap. It just popped up on Instagram the day after Christmas and I applied. And when they wanted to hire me, I said yes. And I didn't think twice about it, you know, and again, I have a circle of friends and family that are so supportive of me. And they know that, oh, Sonia, when you say you're going to do something, you do it with no fear. And that's what I do. I mean, I was like, okay, everybody, I called everybody together. I flew back to Maryland, had like a little gathering. And that's when I told everybody, oh, by the way, I'm going to be a flight attendant. And they were like, we knew you were up to something. And they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, but I'm still going to live in Antigua. So Antigua is actually my commuter city. And you know, my base is, you know, in North Carolina and Charlotte, and my commuter city is Antigua. So I can fly back and forth. I can still have both lives, just like Marissa was saying. You can have, you know, you can have it all. You can't have it all. Don't let people tell you you cannot. It's really about, you know, your belief. God's got you. That's the first thing you have to believe. God has got you. And if you speak it, you believe it, you can achieve it. And that's what I have been doing. You know, there have been roadblocks along the way, but you know,
such as
you know.
I mean, are you talking about roadblocks associated with your moving away?
No,
Or
personal roadblocks.
Oh,
because
personal.
because moving away, I really didn't have roadblocks. I keep my license up. I make sure that I'm doing professional development. I still am a therapist. I am still that, you know, but I'm also a flight attendant. You know, you can do it all. You know,
so let me ask you this, Marissa, because and all of you all are painting this, you know, this completely wonderful picture, but nothing is perfect. What has been the most difficult thing for you in making the adjustment, Marissa? What things have you missed? What things have you had to sit with yourself and say, okay, we don't have this here, or this isn't part of the culture?
I would say the hardest thing for me to adjust to is the intangible, being away from my parents, my closest family and friends. I love DC. I love my tight knit girl crew and my family. I'm a big family person. So the fact that I found something that fit for me so well was a huge adjustment, because it's not something that everybody wants to explore that you love. And although you have people that you love and new community in your new place, I still found myself longing for my community and my family at home. And so I come home a lot, but I can't do that forever. And hopefully some folks will come back with me and see for themselves this next couple rounds when I go back to Ghana. But outside of that, I think as a Black American woman who is independent, you know, I have my own business, I have my own home. You know, you went to school, you're a professional. Being in a more patriarchal society was an adjustment. I think, you know, everybody in the Black country like looks like you, and things are very similarly set up in terms of your environment. You know, you go to fly places, you know, you're making money, what have you. But when people see you and see a woman first before they see you as a person or a professional, that has been an adjustment. But I will say that I've adapted really well. I mean, unfortunately here, and fortunately, yes, we have independence, but still, you know, we're not too far removed from what once was the case. So it's an adjustment day to day. I think driving for a long time, at first I didn't drive. I would just Uber everywhere. That was an adjustment. I liked it. You know, you like it when it works out, but when it's a day that does not work out, you're like,
Hmm.
I just miss my car. You know, so eventually, you know, it takes a while, but you get your own place, you get your own car, you adjust to the driving patterns and the different things like that, the different challenges. But I would say it's least for me to adjust to there than it is here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coming back home is that's the real adjustment. Getting used to the anxiety, watching your purse, locking your doors, going to the gas station, watching your back, keeping your head on swivel. There are lots of things that I have to adapt to in America that I let go of when I'm there. So
Interesting.
that feels more like a symbiotic relationship than being in America sometimes.
So, Sherelle, again, you are being in Mexico where the language is Spanish. It's my understanding, for example, in Ghana, the official language is English, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, and Antigua, official language is
English.
uh is English, with a little spice to it, because I have family from
Yes,
the
some
Caribbean
dialect.
too. I sometimes I tell my family down in the Bahamas, slow down, because I didn't understand what you said, brother. But Sherelle, how's your Spanish?
Well, before I came here, I learned Spanish conversationally. So I was able to speak, I was able to have a conversation. So my Spanish was well enough to keep me engaged, to help me to find friends, and to be able to communicate well. It's getting better. I live in an expat community because Tulum is, it's a little more touristy, so a lot of expats here. Um, the locals do speak only Spanish, but because it's a large expat community, many people speak English. So while I'm trying to practice my Spanish, they're trying to practice their English.
Okay, well that
So,
makes sense.
right. So it's getting better, not as fluent as I would like for it to be because I'm not utilizing it as much. But I do get a chance you know, to grow.
Hmm.
But that's
A
one of the
lot.
things I do miss, the question that you asked. I miss the easiness of communication.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I miss
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly those who are multilingual or speak even a second language very well. That's a superpower. There's no question
Mhm.
about that. But now, Sherelle, you're in real estate. Marissa also has a real estate business, and she mentioned that she was in beauty. Uh, Sonia's a flight attendant, but she has a career. But it
So
would
Sonia.
seem it would seem to me that for someone, I don't know, one of the biggest concerns is how would they survive financially if they were considering to do this, if they did not necessarily have an entrepreneurial spirit. If you just had a job here,
Mhm.
if you were just a wonderful and engaging journalist and broadcaster on the radio. you know because as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm like, well, dang, what would I do? Because I don't speak another language,
Mhm.
and I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not sure they're taking 61-year-old flight attendants wherever I would necessarily want to go. But so was that ever a concern for you, Sherelle, about how you were going to sustain yourself? Because you're not there alone. You have what, you-
Three
two
kids
children,
here.
three children.
Hmm.
Awesome.
So I have to be honest with you. It wasn't a concern for me because I'm different. I have a level of faith that is just, I think, unmatchable. I
Okay.
trust God. I trust His plan in my life.
Mhm.
And when I was ill, I got the closest to Him that I've ever been. So I could hear Him and listen to Him, and I knew that if I was obedient, that He was going to have my back, and He has. And every step of the way, when I listened to Him, he opens doors for me that I never imagined that he would open for me. So I wasn't concerned about how I was going to survive, because I knew that if I listened to him, that he was going to guide me every step of the way. And he has. The thing about Mexico is, what I can say to assure other people who may have fears, is that Mexico is a huge country. It's huge. People have this idea that it is this third world country, and they're not going to have access to things, and it's just simply not true. It's a lot of propaganda. Mexico has cities. They have middle income gated communities. They have skyscrapers like New York. It just depends on what part of Mexico you go to. So there are job opportunities all over this country, all over. So the same job opportunities that are in America are here in Mexico. And because they cater largely to an expat community, there's even a place for English-speaking people. So there's no limitations. I think our fear is our only limitation.
Tanya, talk to me about the cost of living in Kuwait and Antigua. What was that experience like?
Well, in Kuwait, the cost of living was not, for me, it was not as expensive because my job paid for my housing, my transportation. I just had to provide food, so I didn't see, it was like less for me living in Kuwait. Antigua, on the other hand, is a bit more expensive because everything is imported. We're an island,
It's more expensive than Kuwait or the United States?
I think it's a little bit more expensive than the United States. I don't think it's, I really can't give you a good judgment regarding Kuwait because the way I lived there was all I needed was food,
But I'm sure you did speak to other, expats there who did not necessarily have their housing and transportation.
Most jobs provide that there.
Really?
Yeah, they provide your housing.
Why is that?
I really cannot. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't know. But I do know that in Antigua, you mentioned working there. It can be difficult because you need a work permit. And sometimes it's difficult to get a work permit because they want to hire locals before they hire expats or anyone else. So it can be difficult unless you have a job that is willing to provide you with a work permit, which I did have. I didn't just go there without a job. I went there knowing I was going to a job. So I didn't just go there thinking, oh, how am I going to survive? I knew that I would have employment. I would be able to have a paycheck and be able to survive that way. But what you do learn to do is I learned to live like a local, because you learn that you don't need the most expensive things. You learn how to shop locally. You learn how to shop at markets as opposed to going to the fancy superstores that the tourists go to. You really learn how to live differently. You learn that you must have a cistern because there'll be no water sometimes. You learn that you must have a generator.
What is a cistern?
A cistern is a big tank that collects water, or you can order water and get it put in your tank because the government water might not run every day. So, some people don't have water daily, but if you have a cistern, most people have, either barrels, tanks. I have a big cistern under my porch, but it collects rainwater, or you can buy water to put in your cistern. But it's important that you think about the infrastructure of where you're moving to. So, I have a cistern because I want to make sure I have water every day. There's a generator because I want to make sure I have electricity every day, because sometimes the electricity will go out. So you have to think about those types of things when you're moving to certain places. But again, it's all an adjustment. You have to do your research, and then you have to really figure out, how do you want to live? How can you live that way? And I think that's what you have to think about. But as far as just coming and, oh, there's jobs, that's not necessarily true. There's not necessarily going to be jobs. Sometimes you have to make your own job, but it's important to try to come with some type of job, and and to also research what jobs are available where you want to move, because there may not be jobs. And then what are the rules? Do you need a work permit? I know in Antigua and Barbuda they have a digital nomad program. So if you want to work, online digitally, they have a process where you can do that and come live in the country and be a digital nomad. A lot of countries have that. They have citizenship by investment where you can, purchase property, you can do things like that, and you can become a citizen that way. Or you can do it the way I did, where you have to stay for a while and then you can become a citizen. But
what's a while?
Well, 5 years to be a permanent resident. So I am a permanent resident. 7 years to be a citizen. So I'm just waiting to be sworn in, to have all my paperwork done to become a citizen. So, I'm really looking forward to that, because I really do love Antigua and Barbuda. The people are nice. They have welcomed me. I've made my home there. I'm a part of the community. And and I love my home. I can say that, and so
I only have a few minutes left. I'll ask Marissa this. What other things have you had to get used to? Americans are probably, spoiled, but particularly those who may be, middle class or even working class. We may be spoiled by perfect plumbing, spoiled by air conditioning. Would you agree with that? And briefly,
Yes.
how have you made those kind of adjustments to those conveniences that we may take for granted here in the United States?
Oh, I'm very adaptable. I as long as I'm clean, I'm pretty much good. Clean and fed, I'm good. I can get through, when the power goes out, or maybe we don't have water, it's coming, you can get it. But Americans, yeah, we're spoiled. And when you have visitors, when you have guests from America or people on tour, I do tours as well. You really have to prepare people for the journey ahead, because we are so spoiled, and you don't want things to occur that are very natural to your environment where you are and unnatural to the guest. So, oh goodness, the Wi-Fi not working, the lights going out. When the lights go out, the water goes out too. So that means like there's always a bucket of water somewhere, so that if somebody needs to take a bath or flush the toilet,
that's the
you know,
toilet.
Yeah.
there's
Why would
water.
the lights go out?
The infrastructure. The
Mhm.
Mm,
infrastructure, the power grid is not as stable as it is in America. Sometimes the lights go out. Ghana does run off a hybrid electricity system. So there's a big dam that circulates, the electricity that way. So it is a more natural source of electricity. And that's how it is. And like Sonia said, sometimes the government shuts the water off. When I had my business, and I have a hair salon, barbershop, spa. We need water. But sometimes the city on Tuesdays and Thursdays they would shut the water off at 2 o'clock. So you like, okay, well, am I gonna have to wait till 6 to schedule Sonia for her service? So you
hmm
learn to adapt because it's where you want to be and you feel good about it. But yeah, no, when Americans come, it's some who will make it and some who will not. Some people will have an amazing time despite all the challenges and hiccups that come along. They're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. I would do that again.
Yeah.
But then there's others who are just like, I cannot wait to get
To
out of
go home.
here. I
Yeah.
want my structure. So it
Yeah.
just depends on personality. But you want to land somewhere that really speaks to you and that you're ready for the ride.
Well, I guess, in the hair salon, let's make sure that you don't have the creamy crack in your hair when the water
Yes.
goes
Well,
out.
you just always better have some water, especially on the day when you have creamy crack clients. So when you go to make that appointment, you make sure there's a bucket for her, just in
Yeah,
case.
yeah. Don't go on Tuesday and Thursdays.
No,
uh,
no.
Ladies, I could talk to you all for another hour or so. I really appreciate this conversation. It has been wonderful. It has been insightful. It has been educational, and the best part about it is the three of you are from completely different backgrounds, but the one thing you have in common is that you are happy where you
Yeah.
are. And I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's good to know. Thank you again so much. That is the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, February 18th. I'm Harold Fisher.